Hey, this is Brian. Welcome back to the channel. I want to try and keep this video brief. I want to demonstrate a fabrication, a lie, a deception. We've all been on the internet for a long time and we know what sells. We know what goes viral. If you can make something outrageous, if you can push people's buttons, if you can make them angry about something, that's what's going to go viral. That's what people want to share. But if you try to lend a little bit of nuance to the situation, people are not interested in seeing that. If you want to put something out there that's going to increase somebody's blood pressure and make them mad at the world, that right there is what's going to take off like wildfire. I want to show you this example of this Newsmax clip where almost nothing he says is true. Yeah, he's going to sprinkle some truths around, but almost nothing he says is true except for the fact that 42 million people are on the SNAP program, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, because that's what's going viral right now. That's what's making its way around the news cycle. Because of this government shutdown, SNAP benefits are being threatened to be turned off on 42 million Americans. Think about it. That's about 12.5% of all Americans. So I'm wondering why people are so worried about 42 million people losing SNAP benefits when what we should be worrying about is that there are 42 million people on SNAP benefits. Why do so many people need food assistance in this country? I thought this was land of the free, home of the brave. I thought this was the most prosperous nation in the entire world. How can we give $40 billion to an Argentinian bailout, for example, while we have Americans who need food? How can we continue to give weapons and money to Ukraine? How can we afford to give $3.9 billion a year to Israel plus whatever weaponry we give them, while people are starving in the streets of America to the point where 42 million of them need food assistance from the government?
There are 42 million people in this country that need food stamps on a weekly basis. And we're saying people deliberately instead of Americans, because most of the people that are on food stamps aren't even from this country.
That is not true. Absolutely not true. And he's going to pull data from a chart that we're going to look at that is also not true.
45% of Afghanistan immigrants are on food stamps. 42% of Somali immigrants, 34% of every immigrant from Iraq, 23% of Haitians, 59% of all illegal aliens are collecting food stamps, meaning that most of the people getting food stamps from the U.S. government and the U.S. taxpayer are not even Americans.
Now, from the American perspective, if this was true, that would be outrageous. Think about your own household. It'd be like taking care of the poor people on 5th Street and not taking care of your kids. It would just be a betrayal of the people who trust you to take care of them. If this was true, this would be outrageous, and I can see why this kind of information is going viral. This has 1.7 million views right now.
Think about that. And we didn't know about any of this before the government shutdown started, but thanks to Democrats, we can confirm tonight that millions of Joe Biden illegal aliens, people who crossed the border when Joe was president, are now collecting food stamps from a program funded by hardworking American taxpayers.
Now, the Democrat-Republican play in all of this food stamp, food assistance, government shutdown thing should be pretty transparent by now. I mean, this is second verse, same as the first. This is what they always do. Democrats act like cutting food assistance is a major travesty and we're here for the little man. We want to make sure that you get food assistance, but really they do want SNAP benefits interrupted and disrupted and cut off so that it'll make people angry enough to riot. Republicans, on the other hand, want people to riot because then they get to show how aggressively they're going to counter the riots by bringing more military guys on American soil to make sure our cities stay safe. Oh, and peaceful. Don't forget about the peaceful part. So basically, SNAP beneficiaries are pawns in this political theater that neither the Republicans nor the Democrats actually care about. And then you got Newsmax saying, but thanks to Democrats, we can confirm tonight that millions of Joe Biden illegal aliens, people who crossed the border when Joe was president, are now collecting food stamps from a program funded by hardworking American taxpayers, which I call tax cattle. Never mind the fact that Americans shouldn't be forced to pay taxes. There shouldn't be an income tax. There should be no property taxes. There shouldn't be an IRS. And we should have sound money, so that calls for the elimination of the Federal Reserve. But that's a story for another day. But nobody's mad about that. Americans aren't mad about the fact that they're getting extorted by the powers that shouldn't be. They're mad that their extortion money is going to feed the illegals who shouldn't be in this country. You see how the lack of nuance works? You see how the rage baiting infuriates people to the point where things like this go viral? So Newsmax apparently got their information from this chart right here, which was put out by a company called the Personal Finance Wizards, LLC. The site offers financial advice, but published a disclaimer saying it cannot guarantee the, quote, completeness, accuracy, or reliability of this information. And the site's authors appeared to cherry pick groups to include in the chart, saying, quote, it's important to note that the graph highlights a selection of ethnicities we felt would be most relevant and engaging for our audience. But they didn't name the actual author. All the research I've done seems to comport with what Grok just told me right here when I asked, shoot it to me straight, no fluff, how many illegal immigrants get any kind of U.S. benefit? Keep it brief. And Grok says undocumented immigrants, estimated at 14 million in 2023, are ineligible for most federal benefits like SNAP, SSI, TANF, and non-emergency Medicaid. Access is limited to emergency Medicaid, WIC, and school meals, state-funded programs. Overall, 3 to 4 million individuals receive some benefit, direct or via citizen kids in mixed households. 59% of undocumented headed households use less than one program, mostly via kids, per CIS 2023 data. Total cost is $20 to $30 billion a year for federal and state, offset by those undocumented immigrants paying $97 billion in taxes. To which I ask, when you say the total cost is $20 to $30 billion a year, offset by $97 billion in taxes paid, how do undocumented people pay taxes? Undocumented immigrants pay $97 billion in taxes annually through sales taxes, $35 billion, property tax, $31 billion via rent or ownership, landlords pass it on, income taxes, $31 billion. It says on the federal side, $20 billion via ITIN, that's individual tax identification number, or payroll withholding under fake or stolen social security numbers, and local and state $11 billion via withholding or state ITIN programs. They get no refunds for over withheld taxes. The IRS says 50 to 75% of undocumented workers have taxes withheld, and 4.4 million file the independent tax identification number returns, paying $24 billion plus on average from 2015 to 2023. Further addressing the deficiencies and outright lies of this chart, which looks like it's where this guy from Newsmax got his information, here's some SNAP recipient demographic breakdown that I think is interesting and important to take a look at. SNAP, formerly known as food stamps, serve an average of 41.7 million people monthly in fiscal year 2024, representing 12.3% of the U.S. population. Here's a breakdown. White, non-Hispanic, 35.4% receive SNAP benefits. Black, African American, 25.7%. That's because the population of black people is way less than the population of white people. Hispanic, 15.6%. Asian, 3.9%. Native American, 1.3%. Multiracial or other, 1%. And unknown ethnicity, 17.1%. About 40% of the recipients are under 18, nearly 8 in 10, 79% SNAP households include at least one child, elderly adult, or person with a disability. And if you're wondering how much SNAP costs per year, I asked that question too. In fiscal year 2024, total federal SNAP spending was $99.8 billion. So basically, the US government is extorting $100 billion a year to feed 42 million people, the large majority of which are US citizens. If you've got any questions about this, if you've got any corrections, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. I really think we need to stay away from hyper exaggeration, deception, and things that are going to outrage people and lend a little bit of nuance in a world where it seems like everybody is just willing to lose their minds and be angry over everything, when what we should be angry about and what we should focus our attention on is instituting sound money, getting the IRS domestic terror cell off our backs, eliminating income tax, and getting rid of property taxes. And that's just for starters. Leave your thoughts about this for the world and the global thought police in the comment section below, and I will see you in the next video.